Hello, this is Steve Pegram at Sorrento Networks. Welcome to this webcast. This one's called DWDM, Fibre and How to Use It. It's intended to be an introduction into fibre networking and the technologies that support it. That doesn't go too far into the physics or what have you, but it does go a little bit deeper than one might get from press and TV and so on. Hopefully it will be useful for people who are perhaps thinking about deploying fibre, thinking that may be useful in their business, and this should help, I think, to get a better grip on the underlying issues.
So, what is fibre? In essence, fibre is a long strand of glass, very thin, maybe about the size of a human hair. It's transparent, of course, like glass tends to be, but because of the thinness, the width of the fibre and the special coatings that are put on the outside, light that is transmitted at one end is compelled to stay inside the fibre until it comes out at the other end in that classic pinpoint of light image that one often sees with anything to do with fibre. But the thing that's interesting about fibre is that in many respects it's quite unlike copper wires. You can consider fibre to be more like a pipe. Although it's solid, as far as the light is concerned, it doesn't care about that. It's like a pipe, and what goes in at one end eventually will come out of the other end. And courtesy of the BBC's bite-sized physics, GCSE, you can even see a little bit of the physics going on about why that happens. But I'm not going to go into that any further at this point. The point to note is simply that the light coming in one end comes out of the other end. And this gives rise to the classic fibre optic lamp, which is popular, I think, in the 1970s, and possibly even again more recently. I bought one myself recently just because I could on eBay, as you do, and that gives the classic pinpoint of light thing as a decorative feature, and has the introduction of such amusing items in the 70s even gave its name to a plant known as the fibre optic plant. I haven't got its Latin name here, but as you can see, there's something as a resemblance that's even reached the common parlance, if you like. So many people have seen fibre in some respect, optical fibre in some respect, but this is what we come into it at a basic level. So how is this useful for communications? Well, to go back a few generations probably, of course optical communications has been in use for many years. The classic World War II oldest lamp was used as a lamp to flash Morse code over between ships, having this Venetian blind shutter affair in the front to avoid having to turn the actual lamp on and off very, very quickly. And in that way Morse could be transmitted between ships, and I believe that is still used even today in some cases. And actually it is also in use in telecommunications a little bit in what we call free space optics. Between ships or buildings indeed, of course it's limited by line of sight, how far away the horizon is, and even the weather. But as I've pointed out here, at least there's no cable. This is a kind of a niche application which crops up even now and again, but if you look at it, that's something that you can even map onto smoke signals or semaphore. So basically optical systems have been used for many, many years for communications. Now how does that work in the present day? So the introduction of optical fibre meant that the signalling light could be compelled to go within a fibre, and we normally use one fibre, not always, but normally use fibre one in each direction. And it's like the guys, instead of having an oldest lamp, had a torch and a telescope with which to signal down the fibre to each other. Now, as I've mentioned, fibre of course compels the signal to stay inside, and therefore we're not limited by the horizon or the weather, of course. In fact, we're also not limited by the electrical environment either, which is another important aspect. So the distance between the endpoints can be tens, hundreds, or even thousands of miles. Of course, we don't actually use men to send the signals these days. It's all done by electronics. We have a transmitter and a receiver. The transmitter is usually a laser. The receiver is usually a photodiode, and that is what does the signaling, the flashing, if you like, on and off. And the service or the signal that can be sent over that is enormously fast. It could be 10 megs, it could be 1,000 megs, or it could be 100 gigs. But the interesting point to note about that is that the line speed which is achieved over the fibre is completely determined by the equipment that's connected to it. The fibre itself doesn't care because it has virtually infinite bandwidth, unlike copper wires, for example, which may be limited to a few hundred meters. So the advantages of fibre are its enormous capacity, of course. When built into a cable, either with a C-tube inside a gel-filled core of a specialist cable, or a loose tube where it has microducts to go inside, it's extremely tough, very high capacity, and the distance, as I mentioned, can be many kilometers, many tens, hundreds, thousands of kilometers. As I've also mentioned in passing, it's immune to electrical interference, so that makes it particularly appropriate for harsh electronic environments such as railways, factories, long distances, immune from radio pickup and so on and so forth. And because it's so compact, one fibre can replace many of cables such as RJ45 Cat5 cables or coax or what have you. So the density is far improved compared to copper, and that can provide considerable advantages with regards to duct congestion or riser congestion in buildings.
So I hope you enjoyed that short introduction into the very basics of optical fibre and optical communications. This has been Steve Pegram at Sorrento Networks telling you about it, and in the next episode I'll be going a lot further into how you build communication networks on fibre and what different types there are and how those may be applicable to your business. So I hope to see you on the next episode. If you want to find out more, you can contact me, of course, or you can visit our website at www.sorrentonet.com or email us at sales@sorrentonet.com. Sorrento is part of the Comtech Group, based in Deeside in Wales and at Belfast in Northern Ireland. Thanks very much.